All right. It must be time for the meeting. Good evening, everybody. For the record, 5:15 p.m., Thursday, December 3rd, time for the special meeting of the Wenatchee City Council. So I've called the meeting to order. We always start with the pledge to our flag, so I don't know whose turn is it? Mark? Councilmember Kulas?
Please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember Kulas. And for the record, for roll call, we have 6 council members with us. And Councilmember Harold, are you on the phone?
Yes, I am.
Great. Thank you, Linda. Consent items this evening. So they're pretty simple tonight, just approval of the agenda, the vouchers, and the minutes from the previous meeting. So I'd entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I make a motion to approve the agenda, vouchers, and minutes from previous meetings.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Huffaker, second by Councilmember Bailey to approve our consent agenda tonight, which includes the agenda, the vouchers, and the minutes from our previous meetings. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. We have one proclamation tonight regarding a young man named Parker Smith. So I will go ahead and read that into the record. So whereas over the last year, Parker Smith has earned his Eagle Scout rank, the highest rank that can be earned as a Boy Scout of America. Whereas in order to earn his Eagle Scout rank, Parker was tasked with planning, developing, and giving leadership to others in a service project helpful to any religious institution, any school or community. Whereas Parker worked with the City of Wenatchee and the Lions Club to landscape the sign at Locomotive Park. He worked with the City of Wenatchee to develop a plan on how to landscape the sign, worked with the landscaper to pour the concrete curbs, learned to use a sod cutter, and completed the design by installing decorative rocks and plants. And whereas Parker is a cancer survivor of Hodgkin's lymphoma, Parker's personal victory is an inspiration to many who strive to meet the challenges and come out stronger. Whereas Parker has since graduated from Eastmont High School and is now a freshman at Washington State University. Now, therefore, I, Frank Kuntz, Mayor of the City of Wenatchee, in recognition of all of Parker's achievements and future successes, we declare Thursday, December 3rd, 2020 as Parker Smith Day in the City of Wenatchee, in witness whereof I caused the seal of the City of Wenatchee to be affixed on this 3rd day of December 2020, Frank Kuntz, Mayor. So I don't know if Parker or his mom is listening on the phone or watching at home, but Parker, congratulations for all the great things that you're doing. Action items, and if it pleases the council, we have Chief Brett with us today. And so because he was so nice to get here today, we thought we'd start with item E, which is our wildland urban interface standards. So Glenn, if you and Chief want to come up, and I think it starts on page about 82 or 3 of our packet. I checked earlier today to make sure we could get there quicker. I've got it on page
82.
82. Thank you.
Oh, good evening, Mr.
Gentlemen.
Mayor, member. Oh, are you ready?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Glenn DeVries, Community Development Director. And before you this evening is our amendments to Wenatchee City Code, Chapter 3.36, the Wildland Urban Interface Standards. This code chapter we're ahead of most jurisdictions in the state on this. We adopted it in 2011 with the objective of reducing hazards from wildfire events to structures and citizens in the wildland urban interface affecting the whole community. A wildland urban interface, just briefly, is defined as that geographical area where structures and other human development meets or intermingles with wildland or vegetation, vegetated materials. These standards regulate the types of building materials, defensible space, landscape materials, and emergency vehicle access in that area. Following the 2015 Sleepy Hollow fire, the city obtained a grant from the Community Assistance for Wildfire to review the current Wildland Urban Interface Code, a partnership between Headwaters Economics and Wildfire Planning International provided that review with a lot of stakeholders in the valley and the city participating. Upon completion of this review in fall of 2016, a number of recommendations were provided in a report to improve the draft and in a lot of areas other than the code as well. Most of these recommendations are incorporated in the amendments before you. These include a scope and objective to add some clarity to the intent, and then just a lot of amendments to clarify portions of the standards with respect to building materials, defensible space, and landscape materials. One of the things you'll see in the defensible space standards is a specific reference to the residential foothill low district with some additional distance provisions there that are greater than others, because one of the things in the report that was found was that interface, that area in the residential foothills, which was expanded last year, is of the most highest importance as far as potential fires for the city. And there's some additional standards in there. Next week, you'll see a proposal to remove the standards that are right now in the residential foothills district, which are a duplication of our wildland urban interface standards. But the amendments tonight have some additional provisions that are tailored for that area. So we'd stand for any questions for you this evening, and Chief Brian Brett's here, as always, leadership, providing leadership and coordination and direction on fire issues and essential for the update of this draft. So if you have questions for myself or Chief Brett, we'd be happy to answer them.
Did you get what you wanted? I know
Yep.
you met with them on some of the gravel road stuff and setbacks and.
So on the 100-foot setback, there's some language in there that allows if you had secondary access, you could reduce that 100 feet.
Oh, got it, okay.
So I appreciate working with that. I think that'll help developers look at other options.
Anybody else have any questions for the chief or Glenn? I know this is the second time we've sort of seen this, and I'm glad we're leaders in this. We need to be after all the stuff that's happened, and I know we haven't gone as far as some have recommended, but I think we find a really good balance here. So it's important work that we're doing for the next time we have one of these events. It's not a question of if, but when.
No, I think it strikes a great balance for developers as well as gives us some safety and security for that front line for housing. So appreciate that.
All right, any questions for?
Yeah, Chief, first of all, congratulations on your new facility downtown. I've been watching that go up, so it must feel good to get in there. Are you completely moved in?
Oh, no,
or
still
you're
boxes in my office. Almost.
Okay, good. This is probably the wrong question at the wrong time to ask, but I'm comfortable with what we came up with and the presentations we had. When there were things we didn't adopt from the kind of the full meal deal kind of thing. But my question is, and this is not by way of criticism or anything, just as we move forward, these things evolve over time, and you learn things, and then you then you try to correct them for the next time. Is there any areas where we are still vulnerable in terms of code, things that we have overlooked or just didn't get to for whatever reason?
I feel this is really comprehensive and great in making us a fire adapted community. So no, I think we're leaders. I appreciate the mayor and council's support on this, and it's going to make an impact on what we do going forward. We're sitting well.
Mm-hmm. Good, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions for Chief or for Glenn? If not, I'd entertain a motion if we had one.
Your Honor, I'd make a motion that the City Council adopt ordinance 2020-33 titled Wildland Urban Interface Standards that are intended to mitigate the risk to life and structures from intrusion of fire from wildland fire exposures and fire exposures from adjacent structures, and to mitigate structure fires from spreading to wildland fuels.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Kulas, second by Councilmember Hornby to adopt ordinance 2020-33 titled Wild Urban Interface Standards that are intended to mitigate the risk of life and structures from intrusion of fire from wildland fire exposures and fire exposures from adjacent structures, and to mitigate structure fires from spreading into wildland fuels. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Chief. Thanks,
Thank
Glenn.
you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Brian.
Good work.
Merry Christmas.
All right. So item A would be authorizing the mayor's signature on an agreement with the port to do the small business grants. Laura?
Good evening, Council. Laura Merrill, Executive Services Director. The item before you is one of the actions under the ongoing emergency proclamation for COVID. So this is the contract with the Regional Port Authority for implementing the CARES Small Business Grant Program. Because of the very short timeline on expending those funds, the mayor went ahead and signed that agreement for them to administer and get out those funds. They were successful in getting about $400,000 out to our local businesses. We actually just closed that up today and sent the reimbursement request out to DOC. But again, because of the time being of the essence on that program, the mayor signed it under the emergency proclamation. And so what we are requesting of the council tonight is to adopt the resolution to ratify that action. Please let me know if you have any other questions.
So Laura, we're able to expend roughly $400,000, got that out in the hands of businesses.
Yep.
So we had 500, so that leaves 100. What, we have to write a check and send that back? Is that?
No, we ended up being able to reimburse other expenses from the city. And so we had some teleworking expenses, some expenses for employees who were dedicated to COVID, so our public safety officers. And so we did expend the entire CARES grant amount, which is about 1.5 million total. So there was no money left on the table.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah, so we ended up with 1.5 million. We spent a lot of it way back when on stuff and people were home and that all qualified. And then we spent it on PPP and stuff locally. And we got the last little chunk, last 500, 400 got to businesses. And then the last 100 went back to reimburse us. And so we've actually been paid for the first two and approved for the third. So we will actually have all of the money reimbursed from Commerce. When we first started this, it was like, yeah, we'll reimburse you. And I say, sure you will. So we were one of the first to actually say, well, we spent this much, get money. And they were like, boom, here. So then we did the second one. Just to show you how far advanced we are, the county still hasn't asked to reimburse me yet. And they've spent $4 or $5 million in CARES funding, but haven't got the paperwork in. And of course, Brad is like on it, right? Boom, boom, boom. So we've actually got 2 of the 3 checks, and we just the other day sent in our last request, and it got approved immediately, and the check is on its way. And we will be net even with all of our CARES funding.
Very good.
Well, I just want to thank the mayor and staff for getting that done. I think it showed the businesses locally here that we care about them, and
Yeah, we did the
I'm
best
sure
we
that helped a lot of
Yeah,
people.
we did the best we could to try to get it out as quickly as possible, so.
Yeah, thank you for that.
yeah.
Appreciate it. And with that, I'll make a motion that the city council adopt resolution number 2020-36, ratifying the mayor's approval of a professional service agreement with Chelan Douglas Regional Port Authority for services related to implementing the Coronavirus Relief Fund Small Business Grant Program.
Motion by Councilmember Huffaker, second by Councilmember Esparza, to adopt Resolution 2020-36, ratifying the mayor's approval of a professional services agreement with Chelan Douglas Regional Port Authority for services related to implementing the Coronavirus Relief Fund Small Business Grant Program. Any discussion?
Just a comment, Your Honor. Just, I thought it was a good working arrangement between the city and the port to kind of have a centralized entity taking care of this, so you didn't have too many cooks in the kitchen. And I think this made it very, very streamlined and worked very good.
And I think I'd say 2 other things I would add to it. One, they didn't charge a fee. When we take government money and we do stuff, we tend to pay for staff, and they said no. And I think having a 2-county port, there's now you got Douglas County money getting into East Wenatchee Business and Chelan County, and being able to do that as one group, I think was very helpful.
Yeah.
So it gives the port a good chance to understand what's going on and work with both county commissioners and both cities to get the money out. So
Great.
it actually turned out really well.
Mhm.
All right, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Franchise agreement with Cascade Natural Gas. I guess this is just an introduction and no action will be needed. So Laura, I'll turn it over to you.
Yep. So this is ordinance 2020-23 granting a franchise to Cascade Natural Gas, which is expiring at the end of this year. This is no action requested as of tonight because it is a franchise ordinance, and so you have to introduce it, and then you would vote at it on the next meeting. And so Cascade offers natural gas within this city, and they use the city's right of way, and that's the intent of the franchise, is to allow that arrangement. The new term is 10 years for this, and otherwise it's fairly consistent with the terms of other similar ones like the Chelan PUD franchise agreement. Other than that, let me know if you have any additional questions.
I will say this, Laura and I have spent a little bit of time over the last 2 or 3 days sort of talking over the whole concept of franchise agreements and public policy. We have the one with Local Tel coming up pretty quick. I don't know where we're at with Charter, Spectrum.
That one that was renewed at the beginning of the year.
Yeah. We've got a 20-year franchise agreement with the PUD that pays us like $10,000 a year, which I don't know, doesn't seem to pass the non-smell test, if you will. And so we're just sort of spending some time looking at all of these, just a little bit, just under sort of some public policy sort of. Does Cascade Natural Gas get treated the same as the PUD because they deliver something different than television service? I'm just trying to get my hand around sort of the policy issue, and I think Laura is too a little bit. So hopefully we'll plan on bringing this back. We may take a little bit of a step back and sort of relook at them all for some consistency and approach. They've been confusing to me back when I was on council, so now it's getting close to 16 years now.
Well, you might remember when we first got into the fiber optic franchise discussions with Chelan PUD
Yep.
in particular,
Yes.
and Local Tel and
Back then, probably Firefly and,
Gen X.
yep, Gen X, yep.
And remember, one of our expectations that I think we put in for the fiber was that they couldn't cherry pick neighborhoods.
Right.
It had to be full deployment. Our concern was that they would avoid, let's just say, some areas of the city.
Yeah.
And so those equity issues, I think, are still very important.
Yeah. And those are sort of PUD-driven equity issues. 'Cause
That, and didn't we also do the public education and government?
Yep. But we've pulled the peg out because no one was watching it.
Yeah.
But I think, so I think we've got to just sort of spend some time making sure that we're understanding the policy issues and what it is that we expect. I, for one, think the PUD should be paying us more than $10,000 a year to operate in our right of way without permits. I don't think they even get permits. Do they get permits to do stuff, or we don't, how does that work, Glenn?
So right away, yeah, so they have.
They write their own.
A blanket right-of-way permit, and
Right.
that is what the $10,000 per year is what's paying for that permitting that we're providing.
Right.
There are, so in Wenatchee, your utility tax that you charge is in lieu of charging a franchise.
Okay.
Learned that when I got here, Allison explained to you guys you had won a court case.
Yep.
And again, and we need to move on.
Yeah.
I get it. Compared to next week's agenda, though, this is pretty simple. But, we talked about, an entity saying, hey, we're going to provide free Wi-Fi at one of our parks.
Right.
And what are we learning from COVID? One of the things in highest demand is high-speed internet now that the schools have shifted. Maybe we need to be talking about a number of our public parks and our number of public places, because essentially becoming these hot zones,
Right.
Regulated hot zones. And I think these are the things that legitimately we can talk about when we talk about franchise agreements with these entities.
Yep.
About public service, public provision.
Right. Okay.
The only other thing I'd like to add to that
Yeah.
is that it's kind of gone quiet or gone dark or whatever is the discussion about putting these translators in every neighborhood and that kind of thing. So that really hasn't kind of risen again, but there might be some things we want to take a look at there in terms of repositioning or being in position to face that, because it isn't going away, and
Right.
and we face some significant risk in terms of where the direction was going when we kind of last visited this thing.
Yeah.
So losing control of our right of way.
Yeah.
To be quite honest.
Yeah. Okay. Anything specific on this franchise agreement in particular that you want to mention or have Laura look at? If not, we'll just make note that we reviewed it, and we'll either have it for adoption in a couple of weeks, or we'll wait, depending on how our discussions go. All right, Laura, item C,
Yes.
streeteries.
Oh. Sorry, we're just getting the PowerPoint out. So the item before you is the adoption of ordinance number 2020-2022, or 2022-22, yeah. Creating the regulations and permit requirements for the private use of city streets and sidewalks for sidewalk cafes, storefront enhancements, and displays of goods, parklets, and streeteries. So this is something that we've been working with the Wenatchee Downtown Association for the last couple of months, but it's something that we've implemented based off of the pilot program that's been ongoing since I think about 2012.
So we're going to ratify the one-year pilot program 3 years later?
Yeah.
Something like that? Yeah.
Sorry, let's get.
We kept talking about it.
I know. It took a while to get there.
There's a number of things that are parked like that.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Hold on, we have a PowerPoint.
Uh-oh, Tim's coming to the rescue.
How many computers do we
Where
need?
did I put it? It's on the other one.
We can go to the other item.
Okay, yeah. Oh, wait, it's right here. Public-private uses, right?
Yep.
Sorry. Yep. Okay.
Oh, there we go.
Awesome, thank you. Okay. So yeah, 2012. So we established a one-year demonstration project, and then later established a pilot program for the parklets and streeteries, which has been extended kind of ongoing every year to try to get staff the time to actually dig into the code and codify it permanently. The most recent extension extended it through the end of this year, and then it also added on some things to help do retail displays that supported the COVID pandemic, but were also things that the businesses had asked for in the past. So being able to do like a sidewalk sale or put some of their merchandise out in front of their store. So the proposed code amends Title VII, and it basically states that the public use of, or the private use of public streets and sidewalks is permitted when the use is incidental. So for example, a restaurant that wants to extend a sidewalk cafe or into the parking stalls for a streetery. It can't be just its own business. It has to be incidental to whatever's next to it. They can also use the frontage to display the goods and storefront enhancements, as I mentioned earlier. A restaurant could use the space in front of their restaurant for tables and chairs, but when you do it that way without a permit, without this process, then it's really up for anyone's use. And so I could go and take my coffee and go sit down in front of a non-permitted place. Whereas if you do it through the permit process, you get the exclusive use of that area. So sidewalk cafes will only be allowed on sidewalk cafes or in sidewalk areas where it's at least 10 feet in width. These will be allowed citywide, and so there's not a specific boundary. It's anywhere. We got to see that, especially during the time of COVID, there was a lot of restaurants that took advantage of that, and so we wanted to keep that piece as broad as possible. For the parklets and streeteries, it is a little bit different because when you're in the when you're using the parking stalls, you're much closer to the street, you're much closer to traffic, and so we really wanted to take a look at it from the, what kinds of speeds there are there, what kind of space is there, making sure that everything still has a good flow to it. So we did expand it just a little bit from the pilot program. It used to be downtown, and I believe it stopped at, I can't tell from my street here, but it used to be more of the downtown proper, what you would call. So we did expand it to a little bit north of 5th Street. And the intent of that is to hopefully have some of that type of uses when the PUD property gets redeveloped. And so hopefully they'll be able to take advantage of this program. So streeteries are what you would see like McGlynn's, right? And so they have that very nice streetery that provides additional space that does use parking spots though. And so we put some parameters in here in terms of how big they can be, how many you can have per block. The design standards and guidelines though for the specific structure, those will be developed in 2021. So we're currently working, or we'll be working with Wimolo to set one up for them, or they're interested. And so we'll kind of use that as a test case to go through and run through all the design guidelines and work with the Planning Commission to bring some recommendations to you all. Parklets is similar to a streetery, except it's more of a public space. And so these are things that only the city can put forward. And so this would be more of like a green space or seating area that the city would maintain to help expand public areas. These are very similar in the streeteries in terms of the places where they're allowed and how many and the size. And then same thing with the parklets on the design standards and guidelines. Those will be developed in 2021. Last things here, the proposed fee does include 2 new fees for each of these, and it's a one-time fee. So for the sidewalk cafe permit, it's $150. The streetery is a little bit more time intensive. It's the $250. But again, it's a one-time application fee. The Planning Commission, as I mentioned, will review the design guidelines in 2021, and we definitely made sure to work closely with the Downtown Association and make sure they were on board with the parameters that we've put here. So that's about it. I'll take any questions if you have any.
I had one. Oh, go ahead.
My question was, so where does Garlini's and Taste Buds stand in all of this? Because I recognize they're in a plaza and it's, privately owned, but.
I think that's the answer. They're not on city right away.
Okay.
Right,
Yeah.
that's private property.
Yeah.
So if they're not on city right away, we don't have any control over
Yeah.
any of that.
The parking lot it is private, so it
Yeah.
it isn't city owned.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Laura, and this question, maybe this is a question for Rob, but just since we only have one streetery, which has kind of become a permanent situation. Have we had, from a public works side, Rob, have we had any problems with snow plowing and that kind of stuff that be sticking out, quote unquote, into the street because those parking areas are designated as street cleaning and plowing areas and so forth that between certain hours and so forth and so on. So they're plowing to the curb there or close to it. So having to go around that, have we had any incidences of banging into it, running over, knocking the corners off and that kind of thing?
We haven't, and I know it was before I got here, but there was concern with McGlynn's that would be a problem, and they signed an agreement that they would have to potentially remove that in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
But after they was installed, our street department found that it wasn't an issue, so it was left in place.
Okay, good. Yeah, that was one of my initial concerns on it as
He
well.
built the removable streetery that you can't remove.
Yeah.
And then added plants to it and all that stuff, yeah.
Got
And it
pretty
really
deep-
is quite
got
something.
pretty
but-
deep roots right now.
Yeah, it's-
Literally and figuratively, I would imagine.
I'm not sure who'd win that if the snowplow got that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure the snowplow might get second place on that thing. Yeah, it's quite a structure he's got built. And Lamolo's plan is for sort of next year?
That
And they're gonna
was
take up a
the-
little bit of that one angled parking spot and the little concrete area and,
Mhm. Yeah, so
Good.
they're, at least when we talked to them last fall, they were gonna do something over the winter and try to have something up for the spring, for the next streetery.
Mhm.
So this permit is just a one-time or is it annual?
It's a one-time cost. We would review them annually just to make sure that their insurance certificates are up to date. I think the streeteries and the parklets would probably have kind of a code compliance check just to make sure that that's all good. Whereas the sidewalk cafes are a little bit easier to spot check, right? They're
Sure, yep.
tables and chairs. So just a one-time fee, application fee. Unless for some reason they absolutely completely change it.
Right.
So if they want to do an extension, then it would be required to have a new fee.
No, perfect, I appreciate that. One-time fee is great.
And I know last time we discussed this, there was something in there about heaters not being allowed. Is that part of the thing we're going to discuss next year with the design? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So as of now, we don't have specific design guidelines for the streeteries. And so that would be something that the planning commission will take a look at and Glenn's team and along with Public Works as well, to try to
Yeah.
figure out what kind of standards we would set.
Yeah. Well, I think, with what we've got going on with COVID and more restaurants needing to use outside space, that seems like something we should address soon.
yeah. I think if someone had a heater out there and it was, hey, I don't think we would do anything. The key is right now, you're supposed to have these things open on both ends, so there's supposed to be air movement, which I think would make them fairly safe. I did go to an establishment across the river a week or so ago that it was 80 degrees in their outside seating area. Yeah, I took all my clothes off. It was so warm. So at least my hat and mittens, and I mean, it was like, so not everyone is complying, I think, with some of the stuff.
Well, so again, and I think we need to be sensitive to that. So if there's
Yeah.
any way we can address that sooner than later,
Okay.
I think that would be a good thing to do.
All right. Any other questions for Laura? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Well, Your Honor, I would make a motion that the City Council adopt ordinance number 2020-22, creating regulations and permit requirements for private use of city streets and sidewalks for sidewalk cafes, storefront enhancements, and display of goods, parklets, and streeteries.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Bailey, second by Councilmember Hornby to adopt ordinance 2020-22, creating regulations and permit requirements for private use of city streets and sidewalks for sidewalk cafes, storefront enhancements, and display of goods, parklets, and streeteries. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thanks, Laura.
Got one more for you.
And an agreement with the Chamber of Commerce.
Your Honor, I will recuse myself on this next item.
Thank you, Linda.
So the item before you here is a 2021-22 amendment to the municipal services agreement with the Wenatchee Valley Chamber of Commerce. So this contract is funded through our local lodging tax, And, with the COVID pandemic, it's taken quite an extensive hit. And so we've been working with the chamber to try to see how we could renegotiate that, the contract, but still allow them to carry on the services that they provide to our community. So what we've negotiated is for 2021, it would go from a funding amount of about $513,000 to about $415,000. And then for 2022, we would actually negotiate at that time, because at this point, we're not really too sure how that's going to change or how we're going to manage that. And so we'll definitely continue to work with the Chamber of Commerce to kind of forecast that and try to figure out a good spot for everyone. So it amends the last 2 years of the contract. Other than that, there's no changes to it. And with that, I'll take any questions.
I think I'll just kind of a 30,000-foot view. Obviously, when you look at all the different funds of the city, the general fund has sort of been okay through the COVID. We saw sales tax a couple weeks ago. We're sort of holding our own. The hotel motel tax fund is not holding its own. Obviously, there's not a lot of folks staying in hotels. They did okay during the weekends, I think during the summer, but now with the latest sort of shutdown, we are significantly behind. And so things like the chamber, who are taking a 20% haircut, it's because we just don't have the revenue that we had. The convention center is going to need some help from us. And then we have regular maintenance and operations that Aaron and his crew are doing. So this may be the one fund that actually needs a little general fund help at some point. So we're trying our best to keep everything maintained and going, but it is the one that until we get back to having conventions, might need a little bit of city help. So Brad and I are looking at that. I think this contract is fine. They agreed to take a 20% reduction. I think they were thinking maybe it was going to be more than that based on how our collections were coming in. But it is the one fund that I think, listen, we're fortunate we don't have a great big huge convention center that isn't open, that we have a smaller one. But this one will need a little bit of help from us as we sort of work through what I'm sort of thinking is conventions will start again sometime later part of next year based on what I think we're seeing. So we got another 9 months or so of, I think, are going to be fairly reduced receipts in this fund.
Your Honor, one of the things that I guess when I was reading through this, it's sort of, I understand the, the dollars and cents part of it, but I don't know how we position ourselves or whatever, but with the decline of travel and those kinds of things, the amount of dollars to spend on tourism to basically start ramping business back up again.
Right.
Does even though it's what, $8,000 or something, but it's still puts us in a position where we're behind in terms of tourism and
Yes.
attracting tourism. So I guess my question here is is the Chamber of Commerce going to be in a position to really ramp up and to do that with this kind of a cut?
Yeah, they will. I mean, they're going to lose some staff stuff. And obviously, I think you take this money, you combine it with dues. So my CPA pay dues to the chamber, so we're members. I think they're having some issues collecting dues from all business owners right now because some business is tough.
Yeah.
So I think they're working with reduced efforts. But, Shiloh and her team do a great job. They are our voice in Olympia. They do pay for our regional lobbyist, if you will. And so they're doing a lot of good things that help the region beyond just sort of tourism. So I like to support what they're doing. I think they're doing a great job. Some of the other counties, I know Spokane County, which was one of the ones I think got direct CARES money and way more than we got proportionally, gave a lot of money to their chamber for tourism sort of activities. And, I think if you spent money on tourism activities in September and August and now you're shut down again, it may not have been the best expenditure of money. So I think if we stick going in the right direction and we find something that needs us to contribute to help get us going, I think we would do that probably out of our general fund to try to get them what they need. But they've also came from a pretty small organization to, I think at one point there was 10 employees down there. So we just need, I think this is the right thing for us to do. It's the right thing for the chamber. And if things look like they're going again, and Linda's doing a nice job trying to, get conventions and working her tail off to make all that happen, but it's still going to be a while. I know we all want it to be, somehow we're flipping the switch and March 1st it's going to be normal, but by the time we all get vaccinated and there's enough immunity in the system, we got a ways to go. And so hopefully we'll get to a point where that's good. And what's going to lead it is Linda's selling the convention center and it's up and operating and good. And the Coast Hotel and the Hilton got folks in them and we're back to where we were. But I think it's going to take a little while. And I don't know I didn't watch the TV today. What did King County decide to do with their $300 million hole in their convention center?
I was on a Zoom meeting.
Okay. Yeah, so, they're building a
Yeah,
huge convention center and they ran out of money. So I think
right in the middle of it, yeah,
Seattle?
Yeah, they're redoing the one over the top of the,
over the freeway.
over the freeway. They're adding to it and, yeah, huge addition and,
And then COVID hit.
yeah. And I think Yakima was doing some of the same thing.
Yakima, yeah.
Yeah. So listen, we're way better off than many other communities. It's just, well, we'll be there for them when it's time.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I make a motion City Council approve the amendment to the municipal service agreement with the Wenatchee Valley Chamber of Commerce for destination marketing and visitor services and authorize the mayor's signature.
Second?
Motion by Councilmember Hornby, second by Councilmember Bailey to approve the amendment to the municipal services agreement with Wenatchee Valley Chamber of Commerce for destination marketing and visitor services and authorize the mayor's signature. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And note the abstention from Councilmember Harold.
King County agreed to loan $100 million.
Oh, to their convention center. Wow. Okay. Guess we're not doing that, are we? Aaron, waste management contract, first reading.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Aaron Kelly, Public Works Operations Manager. I have actually 3 items tonight for solid waste for your review. No action is requested tonight, as all 3 of them will be on next week's council. The first is the introduction of the ordinance 2020-34, approving a solid waste service agreement granting Waste Management of Washington a franchise for exclusive solid waste collection services within the corporate limits of City of Wenatchee. As we negotiated the contract and kind of trying to be able to find out some of the nuances, the city attorney recommended that we actually obtain a franchise agreement, and this is what this ordinance does. Is there any questions on the ordinance?
I guess what we had before was what, basically just a contract
Correct.
with them, and so now we're moving to a franchise. What's the rationale there? Why a franchise rather than just a contract?
Came back to being able to have either an administration fees and or franchise agreement with Waste Management.
Okay.
As we discussed some of those administration fees and things like that, that's where the attorney has landed on franchise fees the best way for.
Yeah, there were some issues as to whether our administrative fee was legal or not that we have been charging for a while. So we've decided that we should probably, at the attorney's direction, do a franchise agreement. Essence, it's the same money, right? They're just going to pay us for the right to be in our right of way, beating up our streets, doing those sorts of things. And then we can get away from this administration fee.
Okay, thank you.
Why don't you just go ahead and do the next 2, and then
Okay.
we'll see if there's any
Yep.
questions.
The second item for council's review is the 10-year solid waste service agreement with Waste Management for the collection services. The current draft in tonight's packet has some minor language and format changes just due to the fact that both attorneys were actually still reviewing this as we submitted. The final agreement will be in your packet for next week. The agreement will start May 1st, 2021 with a 10-year term and a 2-year extension option. Some of the updates since the last time that we presented and Waste Management presented were that we actually negotiated the annual increase that was proposed at a 4% annual increase will now follow CPI. The services to the city will also follow the CPI, so no unexpected increases. The transfer station coupon program was proposed to be a seasonal, will now be an annual program. We decreased some rates for the code enforcement voucher program. The transfer station hours of operation will be 40 hours a week with hours for weekend operations as well. Residential rates decreased by about 20 cents from the proposed rates. And commercial rates had a slight increase from the proposed rates from when presented. Commercial recycling considerations will take place in year 2, which will include some multifamily options. And then yard debris service will also be considered for a weekly pickup service in year 2. We also added quality assurance language through performance fees to allow to be able to make sure that we hold the contractor accountable. And then the third item is kind of in conjunction with this, if whether or not we start the new contract on May 1st. The fourth amendment to the contract for solid waste collection services, this amendment would just basically extend the current contract until April 30th of 2021.
So as we talked about a month or so ago when we had this and we sort of helped pick, throw all your stuff on the side and Waste Management will pick it up. We'll be going away May 1st.
Correct.
But I will get 2 pickup loads of yard debris for free because they're going to send me coupons.
Correct.
So I can throw them in the back of Jim's pickup and haul them to the,
And 1 garbage.
okay, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. That's sort of the trade-off.
Yep.
Okay.
And then they'll also do the large item
Yep. The
by reservation.
bulky waste.
Yeah,
Pickup.
bulk. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. And then if I want a smaller can, I can get a smaller can and pay less.
Yep. There'll be 3 different sizes.
But
And the
yard waste is, additional yard waste, whether what I get in the can will be, I'll be charged
Yeah.
Yes.
per
Bag.
bag.
Yeah.
But all that will have to be bagged.
And the recycle carts are going up in size?
Nope, they are actually staying with the 64.
They're
It's
not
going to be,
going to the 96?
but it's going to be every week service.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like it is
Every
now.
week?
Correct.
Okay.
And I think the room needed for the recycling is going to reduce because they are eliminating glass.
Correct. Glass will be eliminated.
Okay. So you can't put glass in the recycle anymore, starting in May?
Yep.
We're going to reduce glass going to Spokane, getting ground up, and then put in the landfill. We'll just put it right in the landfill.
Okay. Okay. I know that. Some of that recycling stuff boggles the mind a little bit, but. Okay. So I don't have any questions. You guys have any questions thanks, Mark, and Aaron and the team for working on this, and we'll have it on the regular agenda item for approval next week.
I think we just kind of understand that after 40 years of being able to throw away anything that you can haul out to the curb.
Yeah.
It's going to be a big
Yep.
curve of education for us.
So
And is there an education plan as part of this?
So there's a whole implementation plan that Waste is working on, and that'll actually have to be reviewed by the city and approved.
Okay.
But
We'll send
it's-
something out, utility bills or something that'll go to everybody?
Well, they'll be sending out some postcards,
Okay.
but also as far as for the items that are, extra items that are left at the curb, initially, they're going to actually give everybody a kind of a buy, let them actually have a chance, and then they'll also note, give them a note, leave them a note to be able to make sure that they understand that the next time it will be charged.
Okay.
So those are the types of things that we're still kind of working through as far as for the implementation plan, but that's already been discussed, that there'll be at least a buy and some communication during that timeframe.
And the coupons that they're going to mail
Yep.
will include what?
So
What can you take out there and dispose of with a coupon?
So the garbage coupons will remain the same as currently with the household waste that you can end up taking out there.
I have a real problem with that because the classification of what the household weight was
Mhm.
kind of ended up in the person who was running the booth opinion that day.
Yeah.
And that person would tell you that the city tells us what we can dump.
Yeah.
And then you talk to the city and they say, well, no, it should be anything that you can put in your garbage can.
Right.
We need some clarifications on what you can take out for that coupon. And
Sure.
in my opinion, it really ought to be anything I can throw in my garbage can should be able to take out under that coupon.
Yeah, as long as there's not whatever the environmental issues and.
But you
yeah.
can't throw those in your garbage can anyway.
Right.
Yep.
So again, anything I can put in my garbage can should be
Yeah.
able, under the classification of household waste.
Correct.
Agreed.
And we've actually had some of the lists that have been agreed upon in the past. We can actually include that in the contract as well.
That'd
How
be good.
many coupons are you to get? A month?
No,
Yearly?
3 a year.
3 a year. 1 garbage and
That's
2
just
yard
one
waste.
party for you.
And that coupon is how many cubic yards?
basically a level pickup load.
So about 3
3
to
yards.
4. So that's what we had before, but before you had to take out your water bill and prove that you were
Yep.
a citizen, and now this coupon should make that process a little simpler.
But we are limiting, 2 is yard waste and 1 is garbage, so it's a little bit different in terms of,
Correct.
right?
Yep.
It's a little bit. I'm usually there once a year. This seems to be the, yeah. If I could get through the gal, but yeah. So I think this is a good compromise. I mean, it's, listen, they're a for-profit entity and we're trying to negotiate against them, and it's a give and take, right? So hopefully this works out well, and
Yeah.
We'll see if code enforcement violations go up.
Yeah.
Because of it.
because of the garbage, yeah.
We've had some of those concerns, and that's one of the reasons why we've been able to decrease what they charge for our code enforcement voucher program as well. So that was a little bit of the give and take on, okay, we know that we're going to have to ramp that up.
All right, any questions for Aaron? Thank you, sir.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. Thank you, Aaron.
Laura, you got a list for me? Where are we starting?
Sure. Yeah, Laura sent me an email here, 3 weeks ago or so.
You're a little late.
About legislative agenda, and it kind of did a double take to realize that all of a sudden, it's time to do that, or actually way past time to probably do that. Hopefully you all have got a copy that was sent to you with the current, or with the 2021 legislative priorities from AWC, the five items. And then as per last year, we did have, a few items that we added of our own.
Right.
And so basically, I think this evening would be to, just solicit comments and or recommendations. And then we can finalize this next week on the 10th. So I guess basically with that, and just kind of open it up, the AWC list here is fairly similar, I think, to last year, with the exception of the number 5 one, which is statewide policing reforms. And that's the one that I think probably if there's any questions or concerns about us supporting those 6 items, I think that, now would be the time to kind of review that and express your concerns or support or whatever on that. And then if you have any recommendations for things that we need to add as far as the city itself,
Okay.
then,
So I think my initial reaction, and feel free to chime in, is that we would adopt the AWC recommendations. I will have Chief take a look at the police reforms. He is the president of OSPIC. He picked that this year to be the president of the Washington State Society of Police Chiefs and Sheriffs, or whatever it is. So I encouraged him to, when he asked if he could be getting leadership in that group, I said absolutely. So he will be probably in Olympia quite a bit, working on trying to, get massage what those police reforms look like to the benefit of our local police department. I wouldn't want to be on something that he's totally against on one of those. So
Right.
I would just double check, and we'll double check with Chief and make sure he's okay with it. And then I think in terms of local stuff, I go back to transportation issues, and I don't know whether there'll be some sort of transportation package. One assumes there probably would be. So it's, do you support a carbon tax or a gas tax if we get money for Confluence Parkway? And to me, that is probably something that we deal with in February or March as some sort of a bill works its way through. I don't anticipate it would be part of a sort of a front-loaded. I don't know that there's anything specific that the city is asking for this time around. And we had the Parkside money last time, which we got,
Yep.
and we still haven't figured out how to spend yet. Still trying to jump through all the hoops to get that done.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's anything else in particular, council members, that you would want on a citywide letter that, in terms of legislative policies.
Homeless issues?
We want money for it. Problem with the legislature is they can't trump the Supreme Court, and we'd like more money. We'd like more options, but and I think there's money, there's stuff in that for homeless stuff, isn't there, Jim? In
Yeah.
the AWC,
Yeah.
yeah. We should look at their.
The only thing we had, the other thing we had last year was the, Basic Law Enforcement Academy.
Right.
That, I'm not sure of all the, getting down on too far in the weeds and all that, but I think we're still struggling with that
Yeah.
issue, just not having enough
Yeah, so
sessions and whatever to meet the demand.
yeah, it looks like their big items are state shared revenues, transportation, fiscal flexibility, housing instability assistance, and police reform.
Mhm.
During the committee's discussion, not the board's discussion, getting farther down in the details, like for homeless and home free, that wasn't.
Yeah.
Honestly, the bulk of the time in discussion was on policing reforms.
Yeah.
And time.
Mhm.
Because everyone was pretty much agreeable over transportation funding, state shared revenues, and fiscal flexibility. On housing stability assistance, again, that has to do with the rental assistance. I think that housing in general is still it's not specifically one of these items. It's a monitor, primarily the issues of preemption of local codes,
Mhm.
being sure to defend against that.
Mhm.
Another big issue for the committee, and I don't think it's in, well, yeah, they did have a fact sheet, is broadband, is expanding broadband capabilities statewide to,
And it's in there.
particularly to our rural communities that are at a real disadvantage
Mhm.
in getting higher speed internet for the same purposes that the more urban communities use it for.
Yeah.
They really found this out with the schools.
And I think our PUD is doing a fairly good job. And they're spending some to get it expanded. The problem is the last
The last mile.
20% are going to be the
Yeah.
hardest to get. And one of the things, and I don't understand this completely, but Laura was on the phone call, where there's all kinds of federal money for broadband expansion, but your PUD doesn't qualify because they're a wholesaler under state law.
Yeah,
And it only goes to retailers, not wholesalers.
yeah.
And so there's all kinds of money in Washington DC getting spread out everywhere for broadband expansion, but your Chelan County PUD doesn't qualify for
Yeah.
it. So they'd like to get some federal law changed so that they could get into the middle of that and help them. I don't know what can happen in state law, whether the state's going to start giving the PUDs money to expand fiber. I think that seems to be a bit of a stretch, but I know our guys are trying, or the PUD's doing their best to try to get the entire county lit, if you will. And now we know how important that is to everybody. So what do you guys think about the idea of just having a generic letter subject to the chief looking at it and then adding to it if transportation comes up a little bit later? Does that sort of work?
Mhm.
Some form of that?
Yeah, that's good.
And we'll keep thinking about other things that might pop up.
Great. We'll get that put together.
Okay.
You want to talk about the jail?
Yeah, so, we don't have a contract with the Chelan County Jail for housing of inmates. So it appears we're going to arbitration. I won't get into the specifics of it. I'll ask you guys a question. If you want to get into the specifics of it, we can certainly meet in exec session next week for 10 or 15 minutes prior to our meeting, if that's something that you guys want us to dive into the details for you, or if you just want to call me or something, if it interests you. We are abdicating for a daily rate. We think as our numbers go down, that is the best way to charge for the service, and they are wanting a flat fee. And if we did our October jail numbers and you took the flat fee and divided by 12, we'd be paying $342 a night. We're currently paying $120.50 a night. So this issue about booking restrictions and there's less people in jail due to COVID because it's not a good place to be, we're not the only jurisdiction having that sort of issue. You got someone trying to operate a jail, yet there's no customers showing up, and how do you charge for that? So they're having these same sort of issues in Kennewick, Walla Walla, other jurisdictions in Eastern Washington are sort of going, what makes sense? And so I don't think we did talk to some of them who didn't realize they had a arbitration provision and missed it, maybe the city of Kennewick and a few others like that. So your staff is smart enough to know that we have an arbitration provision and we had to get it to them within 120 days and did. So we will work through it. It's just literally, it's that sort of math. It's nothing complicated. It's what do we feel is the right methodology for paying for inmates? And we anticipate this will take a while. It may not be till March or April or May until
So the current contract continues until arbitration is
We
solved?
certainly believe that it does. Our city attorney would tell you that it does. The other thing is we have, because we're good partners, last year we agreed to pay based on what we thought would be 20 or 25 people. So we were paying $120,000 a month or so for the first 6 months. And by June, it was pretty clear that we had overpaid, and that 6 months of payment is still an overpayment, which will run into next year by maybe a couple $100,000. And then, as your city attorney will tell you, he was in a meeting with the judges and prosecutors last week, and they said, quit arresting people. There's no trials anymore. There's no, just knock it off. Yeah. So I can't imagine our numbers are going to go up. We've been running, I think we ran 12 last month, so 12 ADP. So I'm assuming we were at 6 ADP, 7 ADP in April and May. So again, it's just a very interesting, this is one of these, blame it on COVID. I don't know what the right answer is. So
How do you guys feel about exec session?
I just gave it to you.
Okay.
It's just math, right? And I appreciate the position the county's in. But I also, our number one priority is to the city of Wenatchee taxpayers first, and we need to make sure we get a reasonable deal. What's next?
COVID update?
Yeah, so just from a city administrative standpoint, again, we've got, when the governor gave us his latest edict 3 weeks ago or so, a number of our folks working out in the Public Works office got to go home and work from home. So we have a number of people that are doing that, mostly planners and engineers and those that can work from home. There's a group that can't. We've had a couple of small little outbreaks amongst some of our employees. So we've had a number of them that have had to self-quarantine and do some of that. So we are sort of dealing with this on a smaller basis. Every time we get one, we do call the local hotline and get the appropriate instructions as what to do. We're following the CDC guidelines the best we can. So, but we are no different than sort of any other business entity that from time to time there's little flare-ups in different parts of our group. But so far everyone comes through it fine, but it's we have it around our offices a little bit.
The 17th and 18th, so the work at City Hall.
Yeah, so one of the things, and I think I've mentioned this all to you, is the federal government, when they build buildings, they don't have to get local building permits. And so this building in the basement has 3 large transformers. Transformers are not supposed to be inside of buildings. And so we have partnered with the PUD and local tel, and we are putting in an entire new electrical service to this building in 2 weeks. All of the conduit is in, but they're running all new huge power lines underground to the back corner, putting in 2 or 3 large structures that are going to be the new transformers. And the PUD is removing the transformers for us out of the building so it's safe. So that is a 4-day program where this building will not have any power.
Hoping for moderate temperatures.
So we actually have a contractor coming in from, there is natural gas to the building, so we have 3 natural gas heaters. It'll be running the building to try to keep it warm because you don't want it to freeze. And we will have no power for 4 days. So our offices will be closed that Thursday, Friday, and of course the weekend. And the PUD will come in at 7 o'clock in the morning and re-energize on that Monday. We expect it'll take a while for the boilers and the heaters to sort of get things up and going. But so that is being paid for by the condo association, which we are members of. So it's I don't know if it's a 2/3, 1/3 split or something like that based on the building stuff. But this is something we've been working on for a long, long time, for at least a year, trying to figure out where and how. And so it's almost a $400,000 all-in cost to get that done. But it's for safety because you just don't want the transformers inside. It's a whole new electrical system for us. So, and then at some point, part of this will be, there'll be some generators that'll be out there that'll be used for both local tel and us if there's a power outage. So that's coming as well. That's not part of this bid, but there's a pad out there for some generators. So if you come here on the 17th and the building is completely shut down, you'll know why.
Good. Can the new transformers go over in this corner?
Yeah, you wish, don't you?
Subsurface.
Yeah. He wants them on the mounds.
It looked
I
cool
like
from space, I'm sure of it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, for some reason, all that stuff's in that back corner. What's next?
Last thing I have here is just some kudos to both our code enforcement team as well as some of our police officers.
Yeah, so the code enforcement guys finally got a good cleanup on Delaware and Fifth Street. I don't know if you remember that mess there, but they got in and got a really nasty place cleaned up a couple weeks ago. So Glenn, thanks to you and your team for getting that done. That was very well done. And then we got a really nice letter. I think there was some squatters living in a house at the bottom end of First Street, and got a nice letter from the landlord or the owner of the building. And we had 3 or 4 of our officers working on that project for a couple of weeks. So we got a nice thank you to our police guys for helping them out. They really do a remarkable job. It's pretty cool to see all the stuff they get to do. Next week, I apologize. We were trying to get that meeting sort of shortened up. So I told Laura, I said, we usually have pizza, but I don't think we can have pizza. I don't think we can go get a box and, so we'll maybe figure out some food for next week or something to, we're going to put we've got 3 appointments to reappointing to different positions. Those will go into consent items as a reappointment. So that'll sort of help, but we'll be here a little bit longer next week. And,
I would just say, if you have questions about the agenda items, call the staff in advance of the meeting and get them answered.
yeah, that might help us go a little bit quicker. And I think, and again, I apologize for not having Finance Committee or Public Works Committee. I think in spirit of the governor's orders, those are ones we decided of at least not looking again until January of next year. I will keep you guys posted if something comes up. I think most of the construction stuff. Do we know where we're at on the bridge over the ditch on Maple? Yeah.
A whole lot of paint on the road.
Okay. I'm assuming they're probably in for permit.
Thank you, Tim. Yeah, so Gary Owen is finishing the review on that, and we'll be handing the plans back to Pipkin Construction to start anytime as soon as they can. The marks you're seeing on the road, Councilmember Huffaker, are related to the design of the Maple Street improvements, which we're designing and we're supposed to deliver to Pipkin by March 1st of next year.
How far is that coming down? Because I've got a neighbor who, they've gone through and they've spray painted a lot of her landscaping, which I thought was pretty rude. I mean, these are nice decorative rocks.
Yeah.
And they've been spray painted and they've got flags and they're asking me what's going on. Why? I mean, that's clear down in Kirby.
So it will
Bridge
go,
is way up the street.
the street improvements will go all the way down and connect into the existing sidewalk. There, I can't remember the north-south street. Yeah. So,
but this is clear down on Kirby, so I didn't have a good answer for him. I've been needing to come in and talk to him.
yeah, they usually, on a locate, they'll go several hundred feet in each direction, even outside of the zone of the construction.
Right through there if you get a chance.
Okay.
And then did you get all your pavement out there on the Brandt property, Rob?
We did, yes, we did. We got the paving completed, so the weather was kind to us. So the weather, we got the paving done. They're completing some drainage and we'll be building a retaining wall over against Anderson's property. And so, yeah, if you go by there, you'll see a bunch of vehicles already parked out there.
Good. We have a bunch of vehicles, let me tell you.
We just got word that we're going to get the first building permit for the Lineage property for the first 150 units.
Oh, good.
Submitted this year.
Excellent. That's good.
Wow.
Yeah, and we've had a couple of, we're still having conversations with those guys about helping them move some power lines, but not sure where that's going to go. Other than that, Laura, anything else that's still working on NEPA? Matt still got that going?
Yeah, that will be back to council next week for the budget amendment and the contract with KPG, who's the consultant, as well as all the interlocals. So all of those agencies who added funding to support the project, we have contracts with each of those, and so that'll come in a nice little packet for next week.
All the legal work is done on the Lineage water right transfer from the city to the regional system. So we'll wait for contracts from East Wenatchee Water District and the Lyon County PUD. But if that happens, the city's general fund will get a check for slightly more than $1,050,000 or something.
There's our transformers.
What's that?
There's our transformers.
I know, yeah. We had been collecting rent here, so we do have to feed this building some, but we'll have to feed it a little bit more. And maybe some of that ends up in the convention center, and we'll have places for it, don't get me wrong. Yeah, still a nice little thing for the city. Anything else, council members, on anything you got going on?
Your Honor, this is Linda.
Yeah.
We had a low barrier shelter meeting yesterday, and I'm really pleased to say that the grant from the state of Washington for $640,000 was approved for the shelters, and we don't have a shelter up and running at this time, but they've allowed us to use 3 hotels as a substitute. We're still looking on getting a severe weather shelter put together. The churches are not interested in helping out this year because of COVID and safety and lack of staffing. So it's been a little bit of struggle for staff and for the People's Foundation and Women's Resource Center to find a place where we could have a severe weather shelter. As far as more permanent facilities, it's really expensive to have a permanent facility, so staff has recommended that we examine Quonset huts, and this is what Walla Walla has done, and Moses Lake is doing. I think Walla Walla's got 30, Moses Lake has got about 25. They're a kit that you put together. They're about $2,500 to $2,800 a piece. I think Moses Lake used volunteers to put theirs together, but if we were to have someone come in and do it, it'd be about $5,000 a piece. And then you get some other charges like this services and and making sure you have a facility for restroom and showers and such. That's the preliminary idea, but it's still being researched because we have to find a location for it. It won't work to have it downtown, is what Walla Walla found out, nor did it work to have it in a residential area. So they said the best choice was a light industrial. So I know that that's being investigated. I'm really excited because it is moving along finally, and I feel like we're getting answers. And Glenn and Sandra and Oliver, they have just done a phenomenal job there, and we're very lucky to have them.
Yeah, thanks, Linda. And as I mentioned to Glenn earlier this week, I sort of feel like let's let Moses Lake get theirs up and operating and for a month or two and go down, take a look at it and see how that's working for them. Because yeah,
Agreed.
there's issues.
That
both
would be
ways.
great.
There's issues both ways with that, but we know this. We know the city manager down there, so I'm sure we'll get a tour. Yeah.
When you go, let me know. I'd like to go with you. Also, we have a homeless task force meeting next week, and it's from 3 to 5 on Wednesday. I'm going to be there from 3 to 4, but then I have to cut out for another meeting. Do you or Jose want to take my place at 4 o'clock?
I got your back, Linda.
Yeah, one of us will be there.
Okay, that would be greatly appreciated. I just think it's really important. And the city purchased 2 OWL cameras for us at the convention center. Is it appropriate for me to give you an update on those?
How are they working?
Well, they are amazing. They work really well. Aaron's been sitting in on those tests with us, and they're going to work really, really well. I've had 2 clients so far. We have put them online in Zoom and showed them how they work, and they were just ecstatic. Francine with the Washington Industrial Technical Education Association was freaking out because she knows she's going to be way down on her counts and people are going to miss the convention, and this just solved a huge problem for her. And Cynthia Lyden with Conference Direct said we are ahead of the curve. So this is going to be a huge sales tool for us. We are starting next week by contacting all of our key accounts and anyone we can get in there or get online to watch to sample this out and see how it would work for them. So I thank you for that. That's huge.
You're welcome.
Good.
So COVID update, 76 new, 33 in the hospital. 18 from Chelan and Douglas County, 15 from other places. Was my email I just got. So, all right. Anything else for the good of the order?
Good.
So we'll see you next week for a little bit longer meeting, and that'll be it for the year. So take care, everybody. We'll see you in a week.
All right.
Adjourned.
Thank you.